Okay, Lucy, you there?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Um, Good. So just to let the audience know, our next presenter is Lucille Hickmont. She is going to be presenting on designing an eco-friendly house.
Okay, great. Hi, so my name is Lucille Hickmont, and my project was to design an environmentally friendly home. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of the sustainable building, it means designing and building a home with the environment in your best interest. Here are a few examples um, of sustainable or green homes. As you can see, they incorporate the land around them in the design. This one right here is actually built into the ground to regulate temperature. And this one here has a little thing that collects rainwater in a large reservoir at the center of the house to use as the water source. So why sustainable building? As a nation, we consume more than 2.5 billion tons of active materials per year. Active materials are things like virgin forest products, fuels, steel, glass, cement, and plastics. 90% of these will become waste in less than 1 year. The US also consumes 11 billion tons of non-hazardous waste in a year. But the US Office of Technology Assessment did a study in 1992 that found that the number could be reduced by 6.5 million tons by design changes and effective recycling. Also use 700 million tons of hazardous waste, 600 million tons of building-related air pollution, and 180 million tons of municipal solid waste, which are things like sewage, sludge, etc. The most common discarding places for waste are landfills. There are typically four different types of waste: toxic, reactive, corrosive, and ignitable. Toxic waste is often something poisonous, such as batteries that we use in our everyday lives. Pesticides, cell phones, and computers. Toxic waste can be extremely harmful to humans, as well as lethal to many organisms and animals. Toxic waste dumping is extremely illegal. Wild animals ingesting toxic waste can be lethal and extremely harmful. So it is very important to minimize the protection of toxic waste as much as possible. Reactive waste is waste that can explode and react violently when exposed to things such as water and other substances. Reactive waste examples are similar to toxic waste, like specific types of batteries. Corrosive wastes are things that can rust and even dissolve things that they come in contact with, such as peroxide and cyanide wastes. Lastly, there are ignitable wastes. Ignitable wastes can start fires and or are flammable. On the right, you can see a graph of the annual environmental impact of buildings. And you can see that it's a solid amount of like the environmental impact of the US. I want to do my part to help the environment. Also, I've always been interested in architecture and design, and so I wanted to combine the two. At first, I was only focused on the architectural aspect, but as I began to do more research, I found out more about the environmental impact of building a house, and I decided to alter my project to focus more on that. I started off this project by researching. I wanted to cover as much as I could relating to the project. The three main areas of interest for me were architecture, sustainability, and colonial houses. After I researched, I met with my mentor to discuss what the steps were to building a sustainable home. I found that there are three main parts of green building: before, during, and after. Before is the design aspect. This is where you would decide where you want the house to go, what direction you want it to face, and how you're going to incorporate sustainability into the design. During is the process where you want to maintain sustainability in the materials that you use and the way that you transport these materials. You don't want to choose things that are hard to come by or come from other states or countries, preferably. The last part of green building is after the home is built. The person living there needs to know how to remain sustainable. Using low energy and low water appliances and using electric as opposed to gas stoves are some things you can do. Also, not wasting electricity or resources, not leaving the temperature too high or low, and effectively recycling. So, what does sustainability mean? It means to meet the needs of people today without destroying the resources that will be needed by people tomorrow. A sustainable home is environmentally friendly in all aspects. It is energy efficient, meaning that you don't need to use that much electricity to cool and heat the home. It incorporates water efficiency by reusing the gray water or dirty water, by recycling it into the gardens or things that don't require clean water. Green building, which is environmentally friendly building, also respects the site in which it is built, and you use the land for your advantage. For example, you can use deciduous trees to block out the sun in the summer and let in the light in the winter to heat and cool the house. For example, in Connecticut, red maple is a really good tree for this. It has a high leaf coverage and it is native to Connecticut, it's really good to use native species in your building and land design. It also has very pretty fall colors, which is a staple of New England scenery and aesthetics. You could also choose a deciduous flowering tree such as hibiscus, hydrangea, or even lilac. Even the materials that you use should be sustainably sourced and local to reduce the emissions produced from transporting materials. You can also use the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, or LEED guidelines, to make the building as energy efficient as possible. This system was developed by the U.S. Green Building Council, and it allows designers to track and manage sustainability throughout design and construction. You can also use solar panels to even further reduce your impact. So after researching, this is what I came up with as my design for my sustainable home. It is a 2-story colonial-style house from the front, but the back is floor-to-ceiling windows facing south as to let in the most light as possible, and to reduce the need for heat in the winter. Outside of these windows, I also have deciduous trees that will lose their leaves in the winter to let in more light and create a blockage in the summer to stop sunlight from getting in and heating the house. The most noticeable thing about the design is the great room. The second story is only half the house, like a loft, which allows for a 2-story great room with floor-to-ceiling windows, which contains the kitchen, the living room, and the living room. This allows for the greatest distribution of light and heat and makes it easy to circulate air. The house is pointed with the back facing towards the south to attract the most heat. The rooms in the house are also arranged based on this principle. The kitchen and the family room are in the place with the most heat because they're
Lucy, you cut out for a second there. Oh, there you are.
Oh,
You're good now. We couldn't hear you for a second. You're good.
Okay. The bedrooms are facing the front, but they are on the second floor, and as the heat rises, it will heat the bedrooms as well. I wanted to make sure the house was environmentally friendly as possible, so I decided to research more into the materials that the house was made of. After extensive researching, I found that the two best materials for this house would be timber and cob. Timber is a classic building material. It is easy to build and easy to adapt as long as you know the source of your wood, and it is relatively environmentally friendly. However, illegal and destructive logging are still in place, so when choosing your materials, make sure that it is sustainable. You also don't want the timber to come from too far away. Local materials reduce the emissions from travel. The other material that I found was a medium called cob. Cob is made out of sand, straw, and clay-based soil mixed with water to create a mud-like building material. It has amazing thermal qualities, and it is very durable, and it's made of completely reusable and sustainable materials. Often, the soil for cob is dug from the site which it's going to be made on, which makes the transportation cost very low. The downside to this material, however, is that it's very hard to work with and slow, and might be difficult to adapt if need be. Also, it would make it difficult to make the house blend in with the colonial style due to the final look of cob. It looks more like a Spanish-style home. For the floor, I would probably choose cork as a flooring. It is extremely sustainable, it supports good audio and thermal insulation, and long-lasting. However, it can be expensive to import. For wall coverings, I would probably use wallpaper made from recycled paper. Although it can be more expensive, it is one of the greenest options available. I would try to use salvaged wood for as many things as possible, like the kitchen cabinets and the furniture. I would also want to use recycled glass worktop in the kitchen. It creates a beautiful spotted counter and is made from recycled glass and a solvent-free resin. It diverts waste away from landfills, and it is very durable and heat resistant, but it can be more expensive than things like granite or stone. What's also important is the appliances and electronics that you use in the house. For example, I would use underfloor heating, which is invisible, quiet, sustainable, and compatible with alternative energy sources like solar panels. It is also compatible with all floors and finishes. I would also use low-flow toilets and faucets, which not only reduce the environmental impact, but are also very cost-efficient. It was also very important to me to keep the colonial style, at least facing towards the street. Assuming this was built in downtown Guilford, I would want to keep the colonial New England aesthetic and not make it look extremely modern. This means that the outside would probably be white and paneled with the traditional colonial windows. I would also probably do a small porch in the front. Colonial houses also usually have pitched roofs facing towards the street. Pitched roofs also help to remove the snow during the winter to prevent leaking and potential cave-ins. This project is very meaningful to me. I've always wanted to do something to help the environment, and this is a way to impact people's lives on the daily. Environmental design doesn't have to be building a house from the ground up either. You can make adjustments to existing homes to make them more environmentally friendly, whether it be adding in water-saving mechanisms, installing solar panels, or even just committing to recycling and reducing your carbon footprint. If I had the chance to do this project again, I would love to try designing different types of environmentally friendly housing. For example, an apartment building in the city. Cities house so many people, and if we could make environmentally friendly houses in places like New York or San Francisco, it would make a huge difference. Also, putting in rooftop gardens in city buildings would make great improvements. Although rooftop gardens may not seem significant, they have many uses and benefits. The tops of buildings can reach extremely high temperatures, as elevated as 150 degrees Fahrenheit. With no way of stopping the heat, it will act as a warmth director, heating the inside of the home of the apartment. Rooftop gardens are incredibly good insulators. The soil, a natural heat absorber, and the vegetation that will be taking heat from the sun can benefit the growth in the plants. The gardens can actually lower the cost of cooling for the user. Finally, through organic systems, dangerous pollutants can be removed from the air, as with rooftop gardens. As communities and neighborhoods, we can and should make more environmentally friendly choices in our everyday lives. This is on a pretty big scale, but you can make a difference just by doing your part. Thank you.
Nice job, Lucy. So tell us when the first interest that you had in architecture came. How long has it been?
Well, when I really noticed it, I was lucky enough to go to Paris in 2016 before the Notre Dame Cathedral burned down, and we got to see it, and I was just absolutely amazed, just like the archways and all the designs and stuff, and just how intricate it was.
And I love the sustainability piece. The one that got to me the most was the Cork Floors. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? How is it made? Are you there?
Hello?
Oh, I think I could hear you now.
Okay, sorry, it cut out there for a second.
That's okay.
Sorry, what was the last thing you
I
heard?
was wondering about the Cork Floors. What are they made out of?
Yeah, they're made out of they're made out of like the cork that you would find like in a wine bottle.
Okay.
But the downside to those is that it is imported from Portugal, most cork floors, but you can find it other places. But that's probably the most common and the least expensive. But they're really great because cork is actually it's a plant, so it's environmentally friendly, and also it's a really good insulator, which is very important because that's the most energy that a house uses is heat and cooling. So yeah, and it's covered with like a resin or like a non-solvent solvent resin
Okay.
to make it more smooth and not like that cork texture. But
yeah, that was gonna be my follow-up question is how long would it last? Because I would imagine that without that covering, it probably wouldn't last too long if it got wet or something like that.
Actually, even if it's just the cork, it lasts probably on average 25 years, something like that.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. In your opinion, do you feel that solar panels are kind of a make or break in terms of maintaining sustainability? Do you think that that's needed?
I think not necessarily solar panels, but definitely an alternative energy source. I mean, there are
Okay.
other ways, you can have like mini windmills in your house. You can install those now. I mean, solar panels are the most well-known and probably the easiest way to go. But I mean, even like houses on the river can use the river wheels even to collect energy, although that's a little bit,
Sure.
extreme. But yeah, I think definitely make or break is some sort of alternative energy source because that's just one of the most important things.
Awesome. So I'm going to open up the chat to our attendees to see if we have any questions or comments from the audience, and I could read those aloud to Lucy if so. Doesn't look like we have anyone commenting at this point, which is fine. That happens. So if you don't have anything else, I'm going to turn it over to the next presenter. Really well done tonight. I really love the graphics and the images that you included. We have one comment from Jennifer DeWallis. She said, "Great job, Lucy."
Okay, thank you.
I hope you keep this up. Do you think you'll continue your studies related to this?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, especially the work in cities is really interesting to me, I think, because it's really hard to find ways to be environmentally friendly in cities, you know, because you can't really compost, it's hard to grow gardens, so yeah. All right,
That's
thank
a
you so
good
much.
point. You're welcome.